Welcome back to KCPS Homeroom on ELA Tuesday. I'm your host today, Chris Odom. Today we're going to talk a little bit about reasons and evidence. And let's just start off by featuring the work of the author we're going to talk about today, Malala Yousafzai. Here's a quote by her. It says, "I tell my story not because it is unique, but because it is not. It is the story of many girls." Okay, so we're going to use her today as our vehicle to travel through the thoughts about reasons and evidence, and we're going to explore a concept, a very ancient concept of persuasion called ethos, pathos, and logos. Today we'll also hear a text read aloud. I'm going to do my best with that. You can probably hear I don't have quite the booming voice I usually do, so I will try to read kind of quietly and expressively, but I am battling the crud a little bit today. So I know some of you out there might, have some concerns about your own health at this time of year. I will let you know I have been through that process to find out I am okay. So in case you were concerned. All right, and we're going to listen for some examples and then explain how those examples kind of work. And even more importantly, we're going to connect ethos, pathos, and logos back to your real life. Okay, so again, we're featuring the work of Malala Yousafzai. She's one of the youngest ever to win the Nobel Prize laureate, and she's a Pakistani activist and author. So we're going to look back at what we started last week and her address to the United Nations from 2013. Okay, so when you're thinking about this term ethos, it's an old picture, and you can see how pixelated it is, but this is Marilyn Monroe. And in days prior to today, if somebody saw Marilyn Monroe, and in this case she was saying she was identifying with this shampoo that I imagine may still be around, but not sure, Luster Cream, right? So haven't heard of it, don't use it much myself. But if I were looking for inspiration as to someone that might endorse this product, right, it helps in some ways persuade other people to think it's a good idea. So in this case, when you use ethos, you're establishing your authority and you're answering these questions of who are you? What do you know? And why should we care what you think? And as a public speaker, I think you'll notice that Malala does a really good job of answering those questions right to start off. Okay, so when we stop and think right now, I want you to think about some of the current events going on in our world. And what do you think this word ethos, the idea of your authority, your credibility, your reliability, like who you are and how that factors into the truth you tell or why others might believe you on certain topics, does that have anything to do with COVID-19? I think it has a lot to do. When you think about who you get your information from and how you know its quality and trustworthy, then again, that might be one of the most important things you could learn from doing this today. Okay, pathos. Pathos is where you put some emotion behind all this and you make people feel something kind of stirred in their souls. And it also has to do with your imagination, because if you can see yourself into a situation that you're not in and imagine it and kind of take it in as if you were really going through it yourself, then it's more likely that again brings up some emotion in some of the people you're talking to. And then if you can inspire sympathy, right? If we think about how this picture might work, this young child cannot speak for themselves. And so the person who buys these tires is more likely ensuring that they're safe. And you notice the message, because so much is riding on your tires, right? And we're left to feel this sense of emotion, like, oh boy, what a cute child. We sure want to make sure that that child is well taken care of when they're out on the road, right? All right, and basically our imagination, we can help think through the scenarios that would happen if this small child was in a car that did not have good tires, right? So all that's kind of coming together, and then it gives us this sense of kind of sympathy, like, boy, we better take good care of this young child. Okay, and then logos. Logos is where you really get into some technical ability to use facts and details logically, and to apply reason, and then what's called rationality, that these things do seem believable in the way that you put them together and discuss them. So you can see in this graphic here, really something speaks to us, some details, some facts, some information on calorie intake, but really really what's taking us the most is probably seeing these chips in the form of like a graph, right? Because look how many more chips you get on this pile. And really starts to give us a sense of reason, evidence, facts, all coming together, and again, talking us into something, right? Okay, we're going to try one sentence together. So I want you to get out your pen, pencil, something to type on, and write a sentence or two in which you take a stand about something you believe in. Let's see if you can try to feature either ethos, pathos, or logos, and just complete one sentence below. You could pick from these three, or you could substitute a different sentence. Just put in the word should, so that it gives you a chance to go ahead and take a position on what should happen when you write about it. Okay, so let's again just kind of freeze here for a second. Are you picking ethos? Are you kind of answering that question of who are you? Where do you come from? Why would we care what you think? Are you thinking through this pathos to try to stir some emotions in the people you're talking to with an example or something that might make them feel? And then again, are you using logos in a way that you could create some logic or factual basis with evidence for why people should think or feel the way you say they should? Okay, I hope you've jotted that down. We're going to look for that later. So let's go ahead and hear a little bit of Malala Yousafzai's address to the United Nations from July 2013. While we're listening, please listen for examples of logos, ethos, and pathos. You might put an L, a P, and an E on your paper. And then when you hear any of those, you could definitely just jot down an example of what you heard next to it. Okay, let's start off. Today it's an honor for me to be speaking again after such a long time. Being here with such honorable people is a great moment in my life. I don't know where to begin my speech. I don't know what people would expecting me to say. But first of all, thank you to God for whom we all are equal, and thank you to every person who has prayed for my fast recovery and a new life. I cannot believe how much people have shown me. I cannot believe how much love people have shown me. I have received thousands of good wish cards and gifts from all over the world. Thank you to all of them. Thank you to the children whose innocent words encouraged me. Thank you to my elders whose prayers strengthened me. I would like to thank my nurses, doctors, and all of the staff of the hospitals in Pakistan and the United Kingdom and the UAE government who have helped me get better and recover my strength. I fully support Mr. Ban Ki-moon, the Secretary General, and his Global Education First initiative, and the work of the UN Special Envoy, Mr. Gordon Brown. And I thank them both for the leadership they continue to give. They continue to inspire all of us to action. Okay, what is Malala doing here? Is this a little bit of an example of, again, answering the question of who are you, where are you coming from, and why should we care what you think? You can tell she's been the victim of violence and has come back from it to speak on her own behalf and the behalf of other young people in her situation. Can you hear the way that she's kind of alluded to specific people, the Secretary General, the U.S. Special Envoy, Mr. Gordon Brown, right? Not everybody has these people to be able to mention as groups that they work with. So when we hear Malala mention those, believe me, it helps answer this ethos question of who are you and why should we care what you think? Okay, let's listen and see if we might hear anything other than just ethos in this example. Dear brothers and sisters, do you remember one thing? Malala Day is not my day. Today is the day of every woman, every boy, and every girl who have raised their voice for their rights. There are hundreds of human rights activists and social workers who are not only speaking for human rights, but who are struggling to achieve their goals of education, peace, and equality. Thousands of people have been killed by the terrorists, and millions have been injured. I am just one of them. So here I stand, one girl among many. I speak not for myself, but for all girls and boys. I raise up my voice, not so that I can shout, but so those without a voice can be heard. Those who have fought for their rights, their right to live in peace, their right to be treated with dignity, their right to equality of opportunity, their right to be educated. Dear friends, on the 9th of October, 2012, the Taliban shot me on the left side of my forehead. They shot my friends too. They thought that the bullets would silence us, but they failed, and then out of the silence came thousands of voices. The terrorists thought that they would change our aims and stop our emotion, but nothing changed in life except this. Weakness, fear, and hopelessness died. Strength, power, and courage was born. I am the same Malala. My ambitions are the same. My hopes are the same. My dreams are the same. Okay, did anything stir in you there? Did you feel a sense of emotion that perhaps she had planted some of these feelings in her amazing word choice? Did you hear her discuss her own challenge with being shot? Right? How could we not start to listen and give her a little bit more of our ear, right, as we keep going? Keep listening. Do you hear any other sense of logic and facts and evidence as she starts this part? Dear sisters and brothers, I am not against anyone, neither am I here to speak in terms of personal revenge against the Taliban or any other terrorist group. I'm here to speak up for the right of education of every child. I want education for the sons and the daughters of all the extremists, especially the Taliban. I do not even hate the Talib who shot me, for if there is a gun in my hand and he stands in front of me, I would not shoot him. This is the compassion that I have learned. This is the legacy of change that I have inherited from Martin Luther, Nelson Mandela, Muhammad Ali Jinnah. This is the philosophy of nonviolence that I have learned from Gandhiji, Baka Khan, and Mother Teresa. And this is the forgiveness that I have learned from my mother and father. This is what my soul is telling me. Be peaceful and love everyone. Okay, I hear more ethos. I hear more names. I hear more ability for her to stand up and say, I base my thinking on all of these great thinkers who come before me. Dear sisters and brothers, we realize the importance of light when we see darkness. We realize the importance of our voice when we are silenced. In the same way, when we were in Swat, the north of Pakistan, we realized the importance of pens and books when we saw the guns. The wise saying, the pen is mightier than the sword, was true. The extremists are afraid of books and pens. The power of education frightens them. They are afraid of women. The power of the voice in women frightens them. And that is why they killed 14 innocent medical students in a recent attack in Quetta. And that is why they killed many female teachers and polio workers in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Kwa and Feta. And that is why they are blasting schools every day. Because they were and they are afraid of change. Afraid of the equality that we will bring into our society. Okay, let's stop there. Certainly you must have heard some strong logic. And did you hear the evidence and the detail about the number of innocent medical students, right? And the female teachers and polio workers. You could hear how she mentioned the specific places and the specific locations where these atrocities occurred. Okay, so from those three examples, I would say you probably have heard at least one ethos, at least one logos, and at least one pathos example. So go ahead. Let's see if you could prove it. Tell me why one of them was effective. What was effective about her argument? What, if we read on, would we expect to hear her do with this powerful use of emotion, logic, and her own testimony from her own experiences? Right? When you do those three things very well, then again, people have to stop and listen to you as you take your position, because you certainly earned the power that you're speaking with. Remember that that's really what people want to know when they hear you make a claim and strike up a presentation or take a position against something, is the audience is dying to know these things. Who are you? Why should we listen to what you say? What kind of research and facts have you gathered that help support this position? And then how could you paint a picture so we might best understand the struggle that you mentioned that others are going through, so we could feel compelled to help or do something about it ourselves? This is really the kind of thinking we need the most in our world today, and the kind of thinking that we rely on for young people to stir in their abilities like Malala and show us all down the road. It still can be done, and it's still such a needful task for any great thinker to accomplish. Okay, so that's your challenge for today. Go on, find an editorial or an argumentative article and read for a little while, and then jot down some examples you think you find within of ethos, pathos, and logos. Look them up if you need to, because really they are strange words that we don't use every day. But when you build these three concepts, you're really building yourself a strong approach to having a strong argument and a really much more likely to have a powerful position on that topic. Okay? And explain that impact on that everyday thought of how you use these things out in your everyday life. There are certainly ways that we might use ethos, pathos, and logos in a situation where we're trying to convince someone of our thinking that might be different than theirs. This has been about reasons and evidence. We're exploring Malala Yousafzai's address to the United Nations. Thank you so much for spending this wonderful ELA Tuesday, and have a great rest of your day.